All right, today we're going to talk about some Damien Jurado. Specifically this album, this EP called 4 Songs from 2002. Damien's one of my favorite songwriters. I have almost as many Damien Jurado records as I do Bob Dylan records. No shit. This guy is a very, very prolific songwriter. Just about every year he comes out with a new album and has been since the 90s. And, some of them I like better than others. All of them I think are great. That's it. That's all I got. But this is all Damien Jurado music. But today we're going to focus on this EP from Burnt Toast Records. It's got a couple different variants. Jump back to 2007 or 2008. I was living in Nashville and was here in Columbia, Missouri visiting family. I went by Slackers, at the time the only record store in town, and I found this. Went ahead and picked up a copy of it. And what I think is cool about it, and this is the back. Fun thing to note, these song titles are in the wrong order. This is not the order that they play. And then, the credits here. What's cool about it, though, is on the back side. I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, you can tell on here. You can't tell what it says, but there's 4 songs on the A side, and then on the B side, it's etched into the back in the vinyl. This is like a short story, a big giant poem, and then kind of a little doodle. You can't really make out on the camera here, but you can see what I'm saying, that there's, not music on the B side, but things etched into it. Now, what's fun about it, if we fast forward, to 2019 or 2020, a little bit after the new vinyl resurgence, the vinyl renaissance has happened in the last several years, I found that this album is actually rather sought after, and sometimes online people will pay a pretty penny for it. So I started keeping an eye out for it, just in case. If I found one really cheap, I decided I would just buy it, perhaps resell it at a later date. And sure enough, I found one, and it looked a little different. Do you see how much darker the shading on this sleeve is? Nothing too crazy. And then on the back, it's the same. Still, there's a little more prominent blue shade. I kind of just chalked that up to perhaps the printer was running low on ink when this particular sleeve was printed. Didn't think much of it until, let's move both of these out of the way. This is what the A side looks like. You can see all 4 songs on the A side. And then when I flipped it over to the B side, I was like, oh, it's got a different label on it. Weird. This one just says Text by Adam Voith, which I'm assuming is the text etched into this B side. You can kind of get a little better view of the doodle there. The doodle is kind of an abstract backside vantage point of a guy with a baseball hat just bent over a guitar playing it. And so I was trying to do some research on this album, and information on it is very little. There's very little information other than just this album exists. I even got in touch with Burnt Toast Records, or attempted to figure out, why there were two different labels, just out of curiosity. And eventually what I came to realize was this first one that I bought, tracks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I was like, there's only 4 songs on here. Sorry, tracks 1, 2, 4, and 5. It's like, there's only 3 songs on here. BTV 047. What on earth? And what I realized is that this is actually a misprint. This serial number is actually for a Burnt Toast record by a band, a Burnt Toast release for a band called Aspera. And this is the back label for a completely different record, which I thought was really, really neat. And I loaded it up onto Discogs with all the information for it. And as far as I could tell, last time I checked, I'm the only person in the Discogs world that has this misprinted copy of it. And I never did hear back from Burnt Toast, so I am not sure how many copies of this misprinted record were actually pressed, but it's clearly a mistake that was corrected and re-released with this darker sleeve. They edited the sleeve a little bit and then put the correct label on it. So I was like, cool, so I've got 2 variants. I guess I'll keep this one. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I continued to just kind of keep my eyes out for it, mostly to see if I'll ever find another misprinted copy like this one, but which I've not. I've never been able to find another one or any information on it whatsoever. But one thing I did find, in fact, this is what we're listening to right now. One thing I did find, though, was this other third variant that actually has on the back this is the correct order of songs. So at some point, I'm just assuming that this was released first and then immediately pulled from the shelves. And then they re-released this, and then eventually, I don't know if they sold out of it or whatever, but eventually they re-released it again with the correct order of songs on the back. And so there's that. Damien Jurado, 4 songs, 3 variants, and I got them all. Another really cool thing about this record is, number one, having listened to Damien for a very long time and very, very, very familiar with his work, these 4 songs are among the darkest songs that he's ever written. Some of them are actually kind of hard to listen to because they're very dark, but I'm going to lift this up for a second. It's one of those fabled infinite loops at the end. So when it gets to the end of the very last song here, let's see if we can't get it over there. Yeah, it's ending right here. There's actually a endless loop where the frequency of the song, or the frequency that is the final note of the album, will just go in perpetuity. Right here. This is at the end of the record. And it will play until you stop it. It's an endless loop. It's actually a really interesting record. One of my favorites. I'm happy to have it. So there you go. Damien Jurado, 3 variations of 4 songs.